Well, welcome back to Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color podcast with your host, Dr. Toni G. Alvarado. I am so excited to welcome you to the month of August. Yes, yes, yes. It's the month of August, and it is the eighth month of the year. For some of us who believe in biblical numerology, we would call it the number eight, the number of new beginnings. And so, yes, we have gone through the summer months of June and July, and now we have entered into the month of August, and we are ready for some more dynamic, intriguing, inspirational, motivational, informational podcast conversations. And so this month will not disappoint, just like all the previous months will not disappoint, because again, we have some dynamic women who are going to be with us this month, who are going to help us with our conversations. So we know that we are in the U.S. We are preparing for major election, our presidential election year, 2024. And with it comes its own level of stress and anxiety that these times bring for us. And so this month, we're dedicating all of our podcast conversations around stress and anxiety, and how we manage stress and anxiety amid or during stressful times. How do we handle through self-care? How do we handle stressful life events? And it may not be related to the election, but there may be other life events in our lives that bring stress, good and bad, right? Sometimes it's not bad things that happen, but sometimes good things bring with it its own stress, like marriage and family and jobs and promotions and babies and all that stuff. But how do we maintain self-care in the midst of stressful life events? And that's what we're going to be talking about in the month of August. And I have some dynamic women who are on the front line, particularly as it relates to politics and the election, but also women who are doing all sorts of things in terms of their careers, their family, and harmonizing and bringing harmony to all of it. And so we're going to talk this month about self-care during stressful life events. That's what we're going to be talking about. And our next guest will be up. Our first guest for the month of August is going to be with us right after this. All right. I have in the podcast studio with me a new voice to the Harmonize Your Life podcast, a sister that I recently met through a mutual acquaintance or colleague, the Reverend Dr. Susan Johnson Cook. We met this summer at her Sea by the Sea Wellness Retreat, and she did a powerful presentation there with us around mental health. And when I read her background, you'll know why Dr. Susan Johnson Cook invited her to speak to us about the issues of mental health and wellness around our mental and emotional health. So Jannie M. Cotton, MS LPC, is the first Black woman in Arkansas to serve as the chief executive officer of a significant mental health organization with 6 locations: Pulaski, Lonoke, and Prairie counties. And she recently retired as the CEO of Professional Counseling Associates in North Little Rock, Arkansas, serving 13 years there. While working with children and families for the past 39 years. Wow. Jannie received her bachelor's degree in child development from the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff and her master's degree in counseling from the University of Central Arkansas. She is a licensed professional counselor and has consulted for the last 37 years to develop shelters, outreach programs, and children's services in her state, in the state of Arkansas. She has won numerous awards throughout her career. Her most notable awards are the Senator Irma Hunter Brown Leadership Award, the Monroe Billy Murdoch Woman of the Year Award, and the LRAC Physical and Mental Health Award, and the Woman of Excellence Award, the MLK Trailblazer Award, and the Honorable Lottie Shackelford Political Awareness and Involvement Award. Jannie is currently the vice chair of the Democratic Party of Arkansas and a member of the Democratic National Convention. She is a lifetime member of the Arkansas Democratic Black Caucus and was appointed by Mayor Hy Townsend of Sherwood to the Audit and Finance Committee in Sherwood, Arkansas. She is an active member in her church, New Zion Grove Worship Center. She is a motivational speaker, leadership and policy consultant. She is a colon cancer survivor of 31 years. Wow, wow, wow. Jannie also advocates for cancer survivors, and additionally, she advocates for clients with mental illness, abused women and children, and anyone less fortunate who needs love and support. Her primary focus is to advocate for those without a voice, because God has a place for everyone. She is very outspoken. I can attest to that, hearing her speak, and has a passion for serving others. She is a national and state association of Black social workers member and past president of the Little Rock alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. She served as president for 4 years and a finance member for 50 years. Jannie serves as the chair of the Delta Presents Outreach Foundation Board of Directors, and she was a Democratic nominee for state representative in Arkansas in 2020 and 2022. She's the proud mother of 3 daughters, Lakeisha, and identical twins, Apriel and Andrea. Did I say Apriel right?
It's April, but that's
April.
okay.
It's spelled Apryle. April and Andrea. She's a grandmother of 5 grandsons and a nana to 5 great grandsons. And recently you received a new appointment, right?
Yes, I was elected and appointed to the National Credentialing Committee for Democrats in the United States. And so I'm serving on that committee as we credentialed almost 5,000 delegates last Sunday to attend the National Convention in Chicago in August.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for your service in that area. Thank you. Thank you. So, Jannie, you know why I brought you on. I told you that one of the things I was concerned about as we head into this election was the stress level of Americans or persons like you and I, particularly women of color, as we go into this election season. But not just in this election season, but life presents stressful times and seasons for all of us, right?
Yes.
And so in that, I wanted us to have a conversation around self-care amid or during stressful life events, such as the election and other life events that we find ourselves in. I know for me, I remember in 2016, and I remember how glued to the television I was, how stressful that time was for me. And honestly, I remember the emotional letdown that I had on the other side of that election, right? Yes. And so it was just a stressful time. And then, of course, it seems like every time we come here every 4 years, you know, emotions are high, stress levels are high. And so how do we make it through this season and other seasons in our lives that are stressful? And how do we do that in a way where it does not harm us, right? That we're able to engage in the necessary work, but yet do it in a way that we can still honor and take care of ourselves. So I wanted you to come in and talk to us about that, using your background, your mental health work, your in and your work, how that intersects. So how does that intersect your mental health work with your political career?
So let me first of all say all of us have a tendency for anxiety. And anxiety comes when you don't know what the future holds, which we don't. And we try to predict what it is when you linger in a situation and you linger longer than you had anticipated. It can cause anxiety. If you remember when COVID came and they told us that it would be through in 3 months and 6 months, and then 6 months became a year, and a year became 18 months and 2 years. And so in that anticipation, the way our brain functions, sometimes we become anxious because, first of all, we're not in charge and the unknown. And so there are extenuating factors that cause us to have those problems. And I always tell everybody the brain is a powerful tool.
Yeah.
And we have to be really cautious of what we are in charge of and what we have control over. And
Mm,
so you have external factors out there. As I listened to you on when you said about 2016, if you remember, everybody or the majority of people, especially women, thought Secretary Hillary Clinton would win.
right.
And it was built up in us. Oh, she's going to win. And then you had that big letdown.
Right.
And so emotions does uh, just flutter our minds and our brains. And so we lose control. And so when people lose control of their situation or their environment, that's where the anxiousness comes in. And sometimes if it lingers, it can go into depression. And so
Mm,
we have to be really, really careful of understanding our own boundaries. What is it
mm.
that you have control over as opposed to somebody else? And so sometimes we take on spaces that we're not in charge of. And so we have to be really, really cautious about that.
I like that because you said, okay, so you said that, well, two things I hear you saying. Sometimes we take on spaces that we're not in charge of. And the thing about that is sometimes I believe we're called to those spaces that we're not in charge of, like the work that you're doing, the work that I do, in the community work that we do, justice work. We're not in charge of the outcome, but yeah, we're called to those spaces, right? And
But
so,
you're in charge of your response.
there, okay.
That makes the difference. I can't control what Dr.Toni does, but I can control my response to Dr.
There's
Toni.
the difference.
And
Okay.
that's what we have to learn is how do you navigate in that space what you can respond to that does not affect your mental well-being.
Mm, mm. Okay. All right. So when you're talking about this, setting those boundaries and being and taking care of or knowing what I can control and being in charge of how I respond to the things that I cannot control, right? So
Yes.
what are some practical ways that we can do that? What are some practical ways we can walk that out?
So some of it is understanding your own body.
Okay.
Sometimes we don't understand when we have stressors in our life like death, divorce, we have external forces. We're in control of those things that come within our own mindset and our body. So you think about a routine. Sometimes I see people get really anxious when they're going on a routine and all of a sudden an emergency occurs.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And so when you think about in this political sense, there are so many factors going on. You have people who are saying things. You've seen racism come out. You have seen people who try to predict what's going to happen. You see people who are responding in ways that they never have because we have democracy at stake.
Mhm, mhm.
And so, how do you as a person decide? So, one way you can do it is you shouldn't be in front of that TV 24/7.
Say that.
And that's what happened, or on social media, because people draw you into negativity. And
Mm-hmm.
so too much negativity calls our minds to wonder, to anticipate, to deny what's happening with us. And so you should pick and choose. That's what you do have control over.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
can get upset what's on social media and the TV and the telephone and your friends saying something, but you don't have to let that be your voice and your day. So you get to choose your day.
Yeah, you get to choose. And you know, that's so true because I noticed that the when I noticed I'm gonna compare 2016 to today, right? So I noticed back then in 2016, I was glued to the television. I always had, I mean, even if I wasn't in the room, I had it on, right? It was
Yes.
playing all the time. And now I'm like, no, I refuse to be drawn in like that. I'm not going to be, you know, every little thing that come up, clicking links and following this and that and the other, or on social media all the time. Like something happened a couple of days ago, and somebody asked me had I seen. I was like, no, I haven't been online today, and it really does my heart good to know what I can be a part of, and it does me good to pull away from it so that way it's not consuming my mind.
Right. So think of it also, how much of your schedule do you schedule for you?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
women, especially, we're caregivers, we're mothers, we're cooking, we're professionals. Even if we're stay at home moms, we have a lot on our plate. And so, when is it that we decide? We get to decide. I don't care if you're working your own job, if you're an entrepreneur, you still can make decisions for yourself. A part of that is your own self care.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm,
so you look at your schedule. One of the things that I do to love me is I pencil in time for me.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Same here.
And I get to decide. So on Mondays, it's my
Mm-hmm,
pajama day.
mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
don't take meetings before 10 a.m.
And I remember you talking about that at the wellness retreat.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just decided that on Mondays, I was just going to love me however I felt I wanted to love me. And my famous thing on Monday is to keep my pajamas on.
Okay, okay, okay.
That works for me. Soft music. You don't always have to be distracted. When I'm meditating and praying, you shouldn't have the TV on at that time.
Right,
Because
right, right.
we're human. So you're going to be distracted because you're going to be looking up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Something will perk your ear where it distracts you from the word that you're meditating on. And
mm-hmm,
so those are the things, it's those external factors,
mm-hmm,
like we said, social media or the telephone.
mm-hmm,
Girlfriend called, hadn't
mm-hmm,
talked to her in a while. Now we've made a commitment
mm-hmm.
that we're not going to answer the phone. But the curiosity of our mind, when we take that phone, we get this phone and we look and see who it is.
Mm.
And if I'm excited about Dr. Toni calling me, I'm going to forget my space and
Mm.
say, oh, I'll just answer now. We do that a lot.
Right, right. We do.
And so we have to get ourselves in a moment that we can distract. And I want to say one thing is processing your thoughts. One of the things that can help you is if you're feeling anxious or if you're going through a crisis,
Mm-hmm,
you need to process your thoughts.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
What thoughts am I having? Am I having negative thoughts? Am
mm-hmm,
I having positive thoughts? How do
mm-hmm,
I create positive thoughts?
mm-hmm,
Creating positive thoughts come when we think of those joyful moments in our lives.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And we decide that we are in control of our circumstances. And I
mm-hmm,
think you remember I talked about the balcony friends and
mm.
the
Yeah,
the
say something about that. Go
the
ahead.
front row friends. I know
Uh-huh.
we'll stop on that. We have friends, we have associates, we have sisters, we have sorors, we have church members. Everybody that's in your circle don't need to be on your front row.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Some friends need to be in the balcony. So it doesn't mean you don't love them. It's just you're choosing wisely your circle, because those people feed information to you, and everybody that we're around are not positive. So why engage yourself in negative interactions that draw you in a space where you can be having those issues in your head that's saying negative thoughts to you? Girl, if I were you, people do that I'm a divorcee, but people do that with their girlfriends that are married. I wouldn't be taking that. I wouldn't be cooking for them all the time. And that's just one example. Or you have to be really, really cautious, and you get to decide. So what I want to tell everybody, take control of you and your life. Everybody don't have to be in your space. I love from a distance. Like I have friends that I choose who are in my inner circle. Now I have Sarah's, a large family, friends I went to school, but they're not all in my inner circle.
Right. And
I chose that. I got to choose that.
you get to choose that. And you get to choose when you're going to be in those spaces, even with those people that you love, right? You get to choose when you're going to be in those spaces. And it reminds me, just a few weeks ago, I'm in Georgia, right? And so Vice President was just here. But earlier in July, I was in Dallas for the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Boulé, and she was there as well. And so, of course, I was there. It was over 20,000 of us there, and I saw her. I got to see her in that event. She came to speak to us, and I was delighted that she was there. Of course, this was the second Boulé that I had attended. She's been just the second time she's been to our Boulé since she's been vice president. She was there in this is 2024. So she came in 2022 and I was there. So I got to see her twice. I'm like, yay. But when she was coming to Georgia, I'm team VP. Yes, I'm on her team.
Yes.
I'm all that. But people were like sending you sign up, she's coming to rally, this, that, and the other. And I have been on a really heavy this month in the month of July, I have been on a very back-to-back almost every weekend out of town in ministry or whatever. Right. And then I was just there in earlier July in Dallas and had just seen her. And I said to my sister, I said, I'm not going to go. I said, I don't have the energy to go there and to stand in the line and be, while I'm glad she came, and I'm I'm telling everybody that can go. But I knew for me, it wouldn't have been a good space for me because physically, emotionally, mentally, all of that, I was tired, right? Yeah. And so I think sometimes, even when it comes to good things like justice work or volunteering, you and I are both part of the Divine Nine, and with our sororities and things, we could be always doing something, right? I'm in NCNW, National Council of Negro Women. We could always be doing something. I'm a pastor, local church. We could always be doing something, and it may be good stuff, but those things still bring its own level of stress.
Yeah, so you do know there are good stressors.
Right.
And people think that stress is related to death or sickness or
something bad.
Something bad. But think about preparing for a wedding, preparing your sermon for service.
Yes.
To speak somewhere, preparing to go on vacation. Those are still stressful, although they're rewarding for what you're going, because you're choosing to do something fun and happy. How many times do you hear us as women say, oh my God, I had a wonderful vacation, but now I'm so worn out? We hear that all the time, correct?
And I'm finding, for me, because I'm traveling more and more, I'm finding that packing brings me anxiety. I'm just
because you're trying to make sure. Remember, we talked about that. Did I forget something?
Oh my God,
yes. We create ourselves. I did a workshop on taking the Superwoman cape off. We cannot be everything to everybody, but we also can put ourselves in position to be everything we do is stress. We
Mm-hmm.
either happy stress, sad stress, can't do it no more stress. You know, there are all kinds of stressors. So when do we decide that enough is enough? And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm proud of you for saying that was a remarkable moment. I just turned down 2 events. I said, I thank you and I'm honored, but my cup overflowed. And it
Mm.
didn't overflow with goodness and mercy. It overflowed with my mind needing to take a break and a rest. I
Mm-hmm.
always wanted to do, you said I was a cancer survivor. My doctor said, you do for everybody. When will you do for yourself? He
Mm-hmm.
said, because stress causes physical ailments.
Mm-hmm.
And so when your mental health is not great, it can cause physical ailments. That's why you see, especially women of color, we have diabetes. We had some friends in the last year, 3 of them that I know well, that have had strokes. So we have to decide, is it worth it? That's what helps me.
Is
Is
it
it
worth
worth
it? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you have to practice saying no. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm one that always wanting to be there for someone, always wanting to help. So when I was teaching my clients, I've been a licensed therapist almost 40 years. And
Mm-hmm.
I said one day, Jannie, do what you tell your clients to do.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yes. Yes. Yeah.
We
Mm-hmm.
have to not only help others, but we have to define what's best for us
Mm-hmm.
and then stick to it. That's what we don't do as women.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Especially Black women, we've been ingrained to take care of other people.
Mm-hmm.
That's our mantra. That's what our grandparents and great grandmothers, mama them and auntie them did. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So,
So tell us about just you because you're in this political arena. There's a lot of criticism that comes with it, and a lot of negativity that goes on. So
yes.
how do you combat the negativity? Because I'm sure that brings its own level of stress. How do you combat the the racial slurs and the sexist remarks and the things that are thrown at us, and that we all feel them because we can all identify, right?
Right.
So how do we not internalize these things in this type of environment that we're in right now?
You have, it's all about choices and decisions.
Hmm.
And think of yourself as the queen. If you feel good about yourself, if you love yourself, no one on this earth can take that away from you. And
Hmm.
so I remind myself that if someone says something negative about me, I don't have to own it. Sometimes we own things from external stressors because we're always trying to prove ourselves, right?
Right,
We're
right.
trying to prove ourselves, and someone can say, I was telling somebody we love to dress. I think you and I talked about that. You can have on the best outfit, you can be up and down looking your best, and there will always be somebody that finds something wrong with you. It's the same with politics. Who has a one up? My daughter sent me a video where this baby girl did it, and she said, every time I do something wonderful, every time I do something at another level, someone tried in our sisterhood
Hmm.
of Black women will respond with a one upper.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's the same thing in politics. So we get to choose. It's still about choices, and you can't compare yourselves to others. That's where we also make that mistake. We compare ourselves to others, but God has a perfect plan for you, just for you.
Hmm.
He designed Dr.Toni, and she does not have to be like Jannie.
Right, 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 right.
We have to develop our own skill. It comes with self-esteem building.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of times when we've been traumatized from childhood with naysayers,
Mm,
name calling, and
okay.
not resolve
Mhm.
those traumatic experiences, we carry them into our adulthood.
Yeah.
And so we
We internalize them and accept them.
we
Mhm.
regurgitate that trauma because it hasn't been dealt with. So if someone says something that triggers the trauma,
Oh.
then that's what causes, and that's what they do in politics. If you notice, people go back and look at emails and text messages and things you said that you forgot about, and they use it against you. And so you have to yourself love self. I wanted to say, and I don't know how much time, but there are 5 components of self-care.
Okay, go ahead.
And the first one is self-love.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I don't love Jannie, I can't love Dr. Toni. I can tell you I love you,
Mm-hmm.
but if I don't love myself, there's no space for you.
Right, right. Mm-hmm.
And that's where we start with self-love. How do I love myself every day, girl. I get up every
I know
day.
that's right.
I tell myself how wonderfully made I am, how
Mm-hmm.
beautiful I am,
Mm-hmm.
how brilliant I am. I
Mm-hmm.
repeat it every morning I get up.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
If you are aware of self, your conscious knowledge, it's nothing on the outside that's external can take that away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to be aware of who you are,
Self-awareness is so key.
awareness. And then self-confidence. You can't tell me I don't have it going on because I'm confident in me. It doesn't mean that I'm better than somebody, but I'm definitely not beneath anyone. So I have confidence in my skills. Do I know my limits? I cannot stand technology. So I find people who love it and get them to create the atmosphere I need so that I can speak and do what I want. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
So you're confident in your own skills. I don't have to be like anybody else. And the other one is self-validation.
Mm-hmm.
That's one I want women to really think about. You accept you, you validate you. You don't let outside people validate, because guess what? You'll never meet the top bar of somebody.
You'll never please
You'll
everyone.
never.
None of that. Mm-hmm.
When I was CEO, I would do my best to give my staff their best, good benefits, top salaries, and I would still have people who complain. And so I made up this little thing. I said I could turn cartwheels, splits, and jump over a table, and there will still be a percentage of people who are not pleased.
Now I know that, right? I'm a pastor, so I know that. It's always somebody. I don't care what we do. I don't care how well we preach or whatever. It's always somebody. You're never gonna please everyone. I was looking at something somebody said, made a comment about vice president and her rally here in Atlanta, and in the choice of music that was chosen, and somebody was saying, well, that ain't my time. And I was like, there is no way she or anybody is going to be able to appeal to everybody at the same time, right?
No.
And so we gotta stop making we can't make the small stuff the main thing, right? Or get the tip out. But you're right, there's somebody that's going to always be unhappy. You're never going to please everybody. And so you just got to please yourself.
You please yourself, and my daily prayer is, God, let me please you, because if I please you,
Mm-hmm.
then everything else will fall in place.
You better
And
say it.
and that's what it's all about,
Yeah.
because he creates so many victories for us if we tune in, because he said he made us to be great, to be like him. And so don't I say to women, don't let anybody take that joy from you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Don't let anybody tell you you are less. I don't care what crisis you went through. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care what bad decisions. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the Clark Sisters movie, I think about that all the time when the mama said, "Poor decisions." And we have all made some poor decisions,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
we don't let them
They
be
don't define us,
they
right?
don't define us.
They don't.
You go over that hurdle and be your best self.
Yeah, yeah. And I always say every day that I get up, it's another chance to get it right. It's another chance to
Yes.
do over, right? So those 5 components, and two or three of them I talk about in my book. Certainly that self-love and self-awareness and
Self-confidence and
self-confidence,
self-validation.
self-validation.
And then the fifth one is schedule me time.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, what part of the day is yours?
Self-time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I saw your ad when you were doing the tea.
Uh-huh.
Oh, girl, those are some good moments. Put some good music on. I tell people, take a bubble bath. And if you can't afford some of the fragrances,
That's good. I'm glad you're going there because I was going to ask you to share
put,
some of the
yeah,
things that you feel like women who are listening, because there are women listening to this. There are listeners here who are struggling in this area. So give some very practical things that our listeners can do to bring down their stress levels during these stressful times.
put on, get some candles,
Mm-hmm.
your favorite fragrance, put it next to your bath. Make bubbles however you need to. I used to tell people I used to couldn't afford them, so I get some Ivory liquid, dishwasher liquid. You know how we always make things made, but
Uh-huh.
we give excuses if we can't afford, but everything doesn't cost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Put some music on. Music soothes the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're stressed out, write in your journal. Journaling is one of the best things. That's how a lot of people came to make books.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have so many journaling entries. My daughter said, "When are you going to turn them into a book?" I said, "At God's appointed time." Journaling is healing to the mind
Mm-hmm.
because you get to write whatever occurred with you. You don't have to show it to anybody. So you're not trying to prove points.
Right.
You're taking the toxicity out of your body so that it just
Mm.
doesn't dwell there.
Wow, say that again. So journaling actually helps you take the toxicity out of your body.
It takes it out of your body
Mm.
because you are relieving yourself of something that you have internalized for a while. You are now putting it out on paper. It is no longer buried, it is in your writing. And so that's why it could be a sacred writing. It could be something you don't want anybody to see, but
Mhm.
you go back and read it and you can tell what triggered you. You can tell why you had that headache that day. You can tell those things that you may have eaten and you know not to do it again. You can tell if you didn't walk for a week when your doctor told you 30 minutes a day. So if you journal, it gives you history of the things that you need to look at for your future.
Mhm.
It's really good. And then we have to take care of our body. Now we love greens, we love all those things. There's nothing wrong with them. It's what you do with them. You shouldn't always overeat.
Mhm.
And a part of that is the mental health piece of it. We
Mhm.
have to get our minds situated that we don't have to have every piece of chocolate or
Mhm.
every piece of candy.
Mhm.
And so you know what it all is. It is us giving ourselves permission to be our best self. And the best self is to love self.
Well, listen, I keep wanting to call you Dr. Jannie.
Everybody does. I've been doing it for 40 years. I was a few from getting that, but it doesn't matter. I'm a licensed professional counselor for 40 years, and I have all rights and privileges and can diagnose and treat and evaluate anybody as any doctor can. I just can't prescribe medication.
Well, let me ask you this. Where can people find you now? I'm putting your Facebook page up, but is there a website and are you on Instagram? I looked for you on
I'm
Instagram.
not on Instagram, but I am on Twitter at Jannie Cotton 67.
Okay, Jannie
And
Cotton 67.
the reason I took my website down, and
Uh-huh.
I will plan to put it back up after the political season, I was getting bombarded with so many requests,
Okay. Okay.
so much feedback. I had to take that down for my own self-worth and
Okay.
self-feeling.
Okay. Okay.
But
So I'm
I'm on
putting
Facebook
here
and Twitter.
and face Jannie Cotton 67 on Twitter and on Facebook at Jannie Cotton. Well, I'm telling you, you have been a blessing. I want to share with the ladies or those who are listening, we have been talking with Jannie Cotton. She is the vice chair of the Democratic Party in the state of Arkansas. She is a part of the Democratic National Convention this year. And I brought her in because of her mental health background and because of the work that she's doing in this political space and how she's married those two and how she's managed her own life. I sat in a workshop with her and I was uber just blessed by her presentation at the Sea Live by the Sea wellness retreat hosted by Reverend Dr. Ambassador Susan Johnson Cook. And so, but I'm thankful that she even had the time with everything that's going on and preparing for the election. Thank you for even taking the time to come into the podcast, Jannie. But I want to let everybody know you're listening to the Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color podcast. You can find this podcast on Spotify and on YouTube. I want to encourage you to please go to my YouTube channel at Dr.Toni G. Alvarado and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Like, share, comment, share these conversations. You and I both know women and some of us that are listening have been stressed out with life events. And so we want to, this month, we have dedicated our conversations to how to take care of ourselves amid stressful life events. We're in a very high stress time nationally, and even I would say around the world, because everybody's watching what the U.S. is doing, right? And so this is a very high stress time. Some of you have family members who are on one side of the political spectrum and the other, and we get into these conversations, conversations. Sometimes people have broken up relationships, friendships, all kind of things happen in seasons like this. It can be a stressful time, and so we want to be able to take care of ourselves in the midst of this time and every other time in our lives that may produce stress, not only bad stress, but good stress in our lives. And Jannie Cotton has given us some very practical things that we can do in the midst of stressful seasons to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves. I want to invite every woman that's listening or watching to join the Harmonize Your Life Women's Self-Care Network. It's a network that we started in the pandemic in 2020. It's still going strong today. You can join by going to my website at drtonialvarado.com. When you do so, you get invited into Tea Time with Dr. Toni. There are other things that are happening in the network that you get information about, discounts when we're doing our retreats and things of that nature. So join the Harmonize Your Life Women's Self-Care Network. Also, women, those of you that are interested in being a part of our next intentional self-care program, I want you to be ready because in October, the applications will go live for our intentional self-care program. Email me at hello.drtonialvarado.com if you're interested in that program, and we will get the application to you. Email us at hello.drtonialvarado.com if you're interested in our 12-month intentional self-care program. So many wonderful things are happening in the self-care network. Thank you again, Doctor. Well, I'm just going to call you my sister, Dr. Jannie Cotton. I keep wanting to call her Doctor because of her professional work and all that she's done. But I just want you to know that you have helped us on today. Thank you, thank you, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know it's busy for you right now, but you took the time to pour into those of us in this Harmonize Your Life podcast community. Will you give us one last word of encouragement as we prepare to sign off?
I would. Love yourself today. Love yourself tomorrow. And please exercise your right to vote. I can't tell you who to vote for, but our ancestors fought, died, bled, and prayed for us to exercise our right to vote. So part of your self-love is voting. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yes, Lord, please exercise your right to vote. And it is a part of our self-love is exercising, lifting our voice, right? That's advocating for ourselves. I just did a video and I said, your voice is your vote and your vote is your voice. And one of the ways we take care of ourselves is by advocating for ourselves. And one of the ways we advocate for ourselves is by voting. Thank you again, Jannie, for coming in. Listen, this conversation needs to go viral. We need to let everybody know about this conversation with Jannie Cotton. We'll see you soon on the next episode of Harmonize Your Life, Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color, with your host, Dr. Toni G. Alvarado. We'll see you soon.